Welcome to Big Brother Basics, where we break down the basics of Big Brother Basics Season 3. I'm your host, Keith Guerrero, and joining me are the production members. The always fabulous, always fantastic Jermaine Kendricks. Jermaine, how are you doing today?
I'm fantastic as usual.
And the always erratic, always ecstatic Katie Vandervliet.
Hey, boo.
And the always preppy, always peppy Aaron Nunley. Aaron, how are you doing today?
Great, thank you.
Panaseo. So we had our first instant eviction followed by a fast forward. There's a lot of things to talk about, so we'll just dive right into it. We go into the HOH competition and its minority roles. Jermaine, is it fitting that Chris won this competition?
I got you. I see what you did there. I mean, it is like kind of poetic justice because, I mean, obviously he is in the minority like of the house at that point. And so it's like, hey, here's a competition that was right up his alley to win. And like, I mean, not only did the bitch come through, like he came through like completely, like smoked them. Like great. I loved it.
It was definitely awesome to watch, and he kept on getting everything right. And what was so funny was that Joe was the one that kept on switching his answers, but the answers were like super close anyway. It's 5-4, so he's just creating a new majority and always screwed over his own allies from receiving points. So it was pretty funny to watch. Katie, so now that Chris won HOH, it seems like the nominees are pretty obvious. Do you think that Jacob and Joe is the best move for Chris at this point in the game?
I think it is. It solidifies himself with his minority alliance, which is great. And it also creates sort of chaos within everybody else in the house, which could pull someone over to their side very easily. And as we saw this week, they did not handle that chaos very well. So I think it was very effective in the end.
For sure. So, Aaron, Jacob and Joe were very cognizant of the fact that they are likely to be the nominees. But Chris is giving everybody an opportunity to plead their case. Joe comes in to Chris's HOH bedroom and comes in kind of tense and, just a lot of energy. He explained it to me. He was saying that, Chris is constantly delaying the meeting times. He was ready to talk at his lunch break, and then Chris wasn't available because he was taking Jess to the airport or something, and it kept on getting delayed. So Joe came in with a mission. And that mission was to throw Jacob and Jonathan under the bus kind of immediately. When this happened, I was shocked. What did you think about Joe's conversation with Chris?
Not really shocked, and that's just because it's the past couple of weeks has shown that he'll think strategically, but then when the time comes to act upon that thought, it's just, and he has every right to be desperate because he was the bigger threat, like even before anything had happened. But yeah, messy and totally expected from him. The way that his and Chris conversations go, it's never, I guess, really productive for either side because they're both just clashing and like one of us needs to go because the other one can't trust you.
What was interesting to me, though, is that I think at the beginning of the week, Chris actually did want Joe to stay. Like, I think that he definitely saw Jacob as the strategic threat, the charmer. He didn't want to keep Jacob around. And I think in Joe's conversation revealing information, Chris kind of was hoping to use that information constructively. But at the end of the day, the house had that information for bits and pieces and figured it out themselves, and he was just sitting back. So we go into the nomination ceremony. Jacob and Joe are just fully expecting to hit the block and nomination speech. And that's when Jacob kind of understands what's going on. Why is Joe being labeled the scapegoat? Why is Chris saying that he's coming after me, he needs to get at me before I get him? Jermaine, what should Jacob do at this point now that he's heard the nomination ceremony and clearly Chris made it clear that Jacob's the target?
What should he do? Well, I mean, it's best, I feel like, to just have like pretty much have an open and honest conversation with Chris about basically what went down. Are y'all still there?
I'm still here.
Okay, but are they moving for you?
No, they frozen. But you can keep answering because it's still live. So
Okay,
keep
oh, it is. Okay, so the best thing for Jacob to do, I feel like, is to just go to Chris, be open and honest, and take his nomination like a champ, like, you know, and just be very diplomatic. Because I feel like it will make him seem, it'll paint him in a more favorable light. Should he stay, you know, to the rest of the house. And I feel like that's what he did pretty well. Like, and he ended up pretty much in the process, not only like making himself look better, but he ended up making Joe look worse, even if that wasn't like his intent.
No, I totally agree with that. And like they knew this was coming since like week 2. Like they knew this was coming. So I think they both had time to prepare for how they were going to act on this, and they each had very different plans, right? Joe like stay in the road, going after throwing everyone on the bus, and Jacob being classy and refusing to do that. And I think I think they went into that week knowing that's what they were going to do, like knowing they had plans against each other, and they were very different. Oh, it's just us. But we're still live.
We are still live.
Okay, so let's talk about Joe and Jacob. Who would you personally like to see stay, not knowing if you didn't know what happened? Like, how do you feel about it?
So personally, I just felt like, as far as the game was concerned, at this point, Jacob has more to offer to the game. He has more to offer to the people left in the game. Whereas Joe was like a ticking time bomb. I think we have seen this. I want to say this was pretty foreshadowed for a couple of weeks now. Like, you know, Joe was very in a place where he thought that he was in power, when in reality, like, we knew he never really was like in power. So we knew that his fall from grace was going to be like a big fall. And of course, that's exactly what happened. He just like completely tumbled and fell down on his face. And I think just there was no recovery for him after this nomination. And so, yeah, Jacob, I feel like, was better to keep in the game because Jacob would be able to recover from this week, whereas Joe, not so much.
Yeah, no, I definitely see what you're saying. Joe's aggressive style really came out in his conversation with Chris and the conversations afterwards in which he wanted to stay, like a super aggressive style that there is, like, people don't always forgive and forget. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes once you show your true colors to someone, there's no going back. And so Jacob stayed really low key and classy. And I agree with what you're saying. Are you guys back? We're doing well without you, so whatever. All right, I'm a teacher. Let's facilitate this conversation.
So, let's talk about the veto. Going into the veto, the veto competition is a piggy bank competition where basically the players give each other coins. Whoever, you know, reaches 20 without going over will win the veto. So this is a chance for a lot of collaboration depending on who is picked. And so pick for veto is
Continue, Jermaine.
So pick for veto pick for veto is Michael Brady, Shelby, and oh my goodness,
Dustin. No.
Yes, Dustin. Yeah,
Dustin.
Yeah, Michael Brady. So Michael Brady, Shelby, and Dustin to pick for veto, along with Jacob, Joe and Chris. So here you have basically almost all of their allies in this veto with them. And the allies pretty much now have to pick which of our ally is more worthwhile to keep in the game. Do you think that they made the best decision as far as deciding to collaborate together to keep Jacob?
I don't even think it was a decision for them. Like, they seem to just know going in, like, we're saving Jacob right now. Like, nobody was being like, I have to do this to save Joe. Like, I have to win this veto so that I can save Joe. Everyone was like, oh, I really want to save Jacob. What am I going to say to Joe? I don't even think it was a decision. And that was really clear in the actual game itself when Joe was the only person who gave himself coins. Like, Joe was the only person who cared about him. The only coins Joe got from someone else were in his slot by Michael Brady. Like, nobody was focused on Joe. Everybody, and Jacob was focused on sort of spreading around. And it was like, it made me feel bad because Joe is a good player and Joe is a strong player. And it made me feel bad because his alliance didn't even consider him. I feel like they didn't even think about saving Joe. It was almost immediate. Oh, Jacob and Joe on the block. We have to save Jacob. Not even like, what do we do, guys? Like, so I don't think, I think it was really evident in that veto competition. In the veto, were you surprised by Chris's strategy of spreading everything really thin? Like, he's the HOH here. He had a chance to, and he couldn't get coins in his slot, right? So he had a chance to really do something. Were you surprised with how he took the strategy he used for his veto?
I'm not shocked really at all that he pretty much decided to kind of back away from this because he's already made his nominations. He already knows that it's kind of like the same scenario that it was the week before. Like, if one comes down, the other one's leaving. Like, and they're both my targets. I feel like they're both, like my targets in his mind. And he definitely just said, you know what? Let me just sit back and let me just watch them crumble. And I mean, boy, did they crumble. Like, so yeah, as far as he was concerned, he didn't even have to get his hands like any dirtier than they already were, than what comes with HOH. So I think it was very smart of him to not like show his cards and to just kind of like put them on an even playing field. Because ultimately, whoever survives, you want to make sure that you have some type of workable relationship with that person going forward in the game. So no, I think his strategy was good, definitely, to just make sure that they kind of like, let me just spread my coins around everywhere, and we'll just, see what happens. We'll see what they do, because I don't know if that was his full strategy as far as them turning on each other, but it definitely was to his benefit to watch them like get even more jumbled up and even more frazzled and upset with each other. So yeah, I think he did a good job just kind of letting back low with it.
So Keith, welcome back. Nice to see you. So we're just talking about the veto. What are your thoughts when we're talking about how Chris sort of had a strategy to lay back and not do anything? What do you think about Michael Brady's strategy in the veto to completely forget about giving anyone coins in their piggy bank and just go for the slot machines?
I would have done it exactly like Michael Brady. I'm not going home this week. I can create disadvantages for the next week's competition. However, I would have done it differently. I would have put 5 coins in Joe. Joe's going to go home. So it's kind of like pointless to want to give somebody a disadvantage for somebody that is likely going to leave the game. So I thought putting 5 coins in Joe was a waste. I would have put 5 coins, and people maybe not have been competing in competitions. He's not close with Dustin, so maybe like Dustin. I think Jonathan was a good one. So I think if I would have chosen different people, but I like that he went after the slot machine.
I mean, that's what cost him to get the disadvantage himself.
Exactly. He got the disadvantage himself for that.
Okay, and Aaron, so veto happens. Shelby wins it. She is in this alliance. 2 people on the block. And we all know what she's going to do. She's got this relationship with Jacob. What do you think Joe's reaction is to this? Like, how do you feel about Joe's reaction to knowing she's taking Jacob off?
It's, like I said, it's just him being him. I mean, he felt that he knew what was going to happen with the veto. He tried that little, you got to use it on me, because if you don't, then this will happen. And everyone's like, what are you talking about? So, I mean, I think he realized basically his goose was cooked when he didn't win. But he didn't stop fighting. He didn't stop trying. So I applaud him there. Like, you fight till they throw you out, until we kick you out of the Skype group. Yeah.
Awesome. So we go into the veto ceremony. Shelby is trying to, make a decision and try not to be obvious about her relationship with Jacob, but she ends up using the veto on Jacob. And so Chris has to name a replacement. He wants to build as many relationships as possible, so he nominates the person that nominated him just the week prior. So Jonathan's sitting on the block. Now, a surprise to everybody, surprise, surprise, it's time to do an instant eviction. And I think both Joe and Jonathan were scared out of their minds. However, they had a few minutes to strategize, which was nice. And the way that we set it up was really flawless from our end. So good job, production team. So Jermaine, let's talk about the 15 minutes that Jonathan and Joe had to scramble for votes. I know that both of you, Jermaine and Katie, did not necessarily get as much action inside your specific rooms, but there's a lot of action in the bathtub and the living room. Jermaine, tell me a little bit about, the hot tub. The hot tub in the living room. Jermaine, tell me a little bit about Joe's journey and what he experienced within this 15 minutes.
Okay, so from what I saw, basically, the rest of the house gets used that good amount of time to compare notes about Joe when he was not around, and like all the puzzle pieces started to fall into place, and he couldn't get into that living room for a good amount of time, and like pretty much his game was being ripped apart, like not even in front of him, like a room over. When he finally gets in the room, though, and is confronted with like his messiness, instead of fessing up, he still continues to lie. And it was painful to watch, to say the least, because you could tell he was flustered, and he was just speaking. He wasn't even thinking at this point. He was just like lie, 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 lie. And they're like, you're not making any sense. You're not making any sense. Jacob is silent, by the way. Jacob's sitting there just like, because he's like so livid at this point. But Joe is just like he's already in a hole. He is digging. He's going to China at this point, because he says it to Chris, and Chris is just like, I have no reason to make up this lie. Like, I nominated you both. So instead of maybe using the time to really try to make some valid arguments to keep him, he instead embarrassed himself and just like packed his own bags.
It was just like a game of Mafia, and Joe has decided to be Mafia, and he's trying to say to everybody that he's town, but like everybody knows he's Mafia. I kind of appreciate the fact that Joe just committed to this lie, because I think he's damned if he even like fesses up. So like, why not just own the story, even if you are a bad liar? And like, there are so many points where I was like, oh, it's so obvious that Joe's lying. But I'm glad that he like just freaking owned it from beginning to end. And he left the house and without giving any sort of like confirmation to anybody, because even though a lot of people know that Joe messed up and like threw his lines out the bus, they don't have that confirmation from Joe himself. So I think there's always going to be that doubt of, oh, I wonder if what Joe was saying or Chris was exaggerating. They'll never know because Joe never gave it to them. And so I kind of appreciate Joe for that. It was pretty funny because in the hot tub. It was initially Shelby and Andrew, and they were warming up to each other, and they were about to talk about who they're going to vote out, and then Joe joined the call, and it just dropped, and then Shelby's just like, this game's crazy, just changing the subject immediately. I felt pretty bad for Jonathan because he wanted to, like, campaign for votes, but there's this it had nothing to do with Jonathan. It was just a very intense conversation between initially Chris and Jacob, and then Chris and Joe. So Jonathan, he's like, you know what, I feel like I'm sitting pretty, and I was scared about this instant eviction at first, but maybe I can coast on by. So that was really fun to watch. Katie, let's talk about the votes. So people are coming into the diary room now to vote people out. And they had just a few minutes to decide. Do you think that the House made the right decision in voting out Joe at this point, or do you think that they should have potentially considered John?
No, 100% they made the right decision to vote out Joe. Like, Joe is aggressive, he's dangerous, he's controlling in a vote, he's manipulative. Like, Joe, and those are all in a game like this really good qualities, which is bad for everybody else. Jonathan, let's take a look at his resume for a hot minute and think about exactly what qualifications he has to win this game. Right now, not a lot. I would not be voting for him. Now, who's to say that's not going to change in the future, right? He is I think in a really shady gray area in which he's on a side of the House, but nobody sees him as the solid member of that side. So he's got a lot of opportunity to be really flexible. So I don't see voting Jonathan out as a positive either, even if it wasn't Joe. Like, Jonathan is so malleable in this situation that he's easily swayed and easy to change, I think. He's not building these connections like Jacob and Shelby together, or Shelby and Dustin together, or Shelby and Brady. A lot of Shelby connections I'm noticing, but he's not building these connections with the people on his side like everybody else is. So I think he is a good person for everybody to keep in because he's an easy person to put on the block, but he's also an easy person to sway onto your side if you really need him to.
Awesome. Let's talk about the Hinky vote real quick. Michael Brady, what do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
It doesn't mean anything. I mean, had we not had someone leave literally the next day, maybe we could have been like, who was that Hinky vote? Who's trying to, sabotage Jacob to make it was Jacob or something like that. But we don't have time for that, so it didn't.
Somebody's leaving tomorrow.
Yeah, we don't have time for that. Like, that's not our priority right now. So, you throw your Hinky vote. You don't want it to be unanimous. Whatever the excuse is that you're gonna use, but it doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah. So Joe is evicted. 6-1 vote. Joe's gone. Thank you so much for playing, Joe. We're going into the fast forward lounge week. And it's kind of a positive atmosphere in the House within this time frame. A lot of people, it's kind of feeling like week 1 vibes where people are like opening to talk to each other, the walls are coming down and people are willing to engage in conversation again. Aaron, because I asked you about the Hinky vote, I'm going to ask you one more question. Let's talk about the conversation that was between Jacob, Shelby, and Dustin, along with Chris. It was a house call initially. It was down to those 4. And then they began discussing the next round, how they're going to approach it. Shelby, Jacob, and Dustin were very adamant on getting rid of some pawn figures. Some Mandys, some Andrews, and maybe even potentially Ryan. But they were very vocal with Chris, where Chris obviously made a move against them this week. So tell me about that dynamic and your thoughts of the information that was exchanged, especially from the Crybabies to Chris.
Well, first off, it was, and I guess from a production standpoint, extremely risky for them to talk to Chris about it because he can tell all of that information to those small players. But then again, they're not winning anything. At least one, they're not winning anything, so they're not really that much of a threat, just vote-wise. Though I thought it was really awesome. Like, I'm all here for final 5, final 6 of players, people playing, fighting for HOHs, vetoes, strategic gameplay, because that's not what those other 3 people are doing. They're kind of just sitting there, biding time, waiting for everyone else to kick each other out, and then going for the kill at the end. And it's so good. And I think that the reason like that conversation happened is because it's jury time. So like people are like, all right, so I made jury because everyone's got to make jury to feel safe in the game. And then now that they know that the jury starts and people have to be nice to each other at some extent to get a vote, that they can start blurring the line of this side and that side, which is pretty good.
Jermaine, let's talk about Ryan for a little bit, because he's like the king of group chats, and they're not even good group chats. It's just like people in a Skype group. But he created something called the Outsiders, which are basically the three irrelevant people in the game. It was Ryan, Andrew, and Mandy. It's interesting that Ryan put this group together before the competition, and it seemed like he had a lot of stock in this group, and he wanted one of those three people to win, because Ryan's ideal final three would be with those three people, with the other two people in that group. Jermaine, tell me a little bit about this Outsiders grouping that Ryan has formed, and what's your thoughts of
it? So it's interesting because to me it seems like his last like swoop of the house. I mean, we've already seen he's got alliances with multiple people, like you said, and it was like, well, just in case something doesn't go like my way, let me go ahead and like sweep up these last couple of people that, like, should something happen, they might, win something and keep me safe. I actually think that it was not a bad idea to kind of get, the Outsiders together and say like, hey, let's stick together. Because I mean, hey, he is trying to make sure all his bases are covered. And they are not the most observant people to realize that was such a like there was like such like a shallow ploy to like just such a shallow ploy to like make sure he was safe. And of course they're just like, oh yeah, sure, Mandy's like, nobody's put me in an alliance yet, and like, yay. And so they feel included, and it's like, for him, I actually think it's good. And it just it worked for him. But I mean, had he put somebody in that group that maybe had more of a if he put somebody in that group that just had more awareness of the game, like, he really could have shot himself in the foot by making that group.
What was funny about that group, well, maybe not necessarily funny, but this is the frustrating thing for me as a production member watching Ryan play, is that I do know his intentions. He wants to get to the end with Mandy and with Andrew. And by the way, however, what was funny was that Andrew kind of had like a scary moment where like he might not show up to Fast Forward because he's doing some other shit. And then immediately after Ryan heard that news, he resurrected the Care Bears Alliance and says, really hope that one of us wins, guys. For me, it's just like, oh, that turns my stomach a little bit. I'm like, man, this guy is like really fake. Katie, tell me a little bit more about Ryan and all the group chats that he has. He's basically connected to everybody but Dustin and Jonathan.
I feel like that's a dangerous question to ask me, Keith, because I got some thoughts about Ryan. First of all, fuck this guy's gameplay. Like, for real right now. What are you doing, Ryan? Ryan, I need you to watch this, and I need you to understand you are the messiest fucking guy right now. You're doing all the wrong things, and you're falling ass backwards into lucky situations. I need you to know that. This is not your expert gameplay that's got you where you are right now. It's fucking luck that nobody has compared notes about your stupid ass gameplay. Unbelievable right now. Like, how is he talking to almost everybody and doing absolutely fucking nothing? Like, relevant. Like, these people are keeping you around because you're so useless. Like, please know that. You're here because of how useless you are. And if you show yourself to not be useless, I guarantee you people are going to come after you, but you probably don't think that's true because you think you're already fucking relevant. It's ridiculous. I can't. I don't know why you would ask me about him. Like, I'm not even about this guy right now. And like, he seems like a fine person. We've had a conversation once. I've listened to him about fucking sports, him and Michael Brady broing out. I've had to be a part of one of those conversations. But no, like, this is not smart gameplay. Oh.
Thank you, Katie. Ryan, I would have to say that I agree with everything that Katie said. So keep that in mind. So let's talk about the fast forward week. It's coming up. We're going into the HOH competition. Brady and Dustin start off. Dustin flubs. And that kind of sets the tone for the rest of the game. Now, somehow, Jacob and Shelby both make Final Three. It's down to Jacob, Shelby, and Ryan. I'll take some blame because I think the question that I asked Jacob and Shelby was worded weirdly, but neither one of them was buzzing. I'm like, if neither of y'all buzz in, I'm about to eliminate both of you. So somebody buzz in. And based on what I heard from Katie, it seemed like Jacob was more studied. So I wish Shelby would have buzzed in and just answered anything. But Shelby instead was kind of really trying to understand the question and was, of course, Jacob had to buzz in and got the answer wrong. So Jacob's eliminated, then it's Shelby versus Ryan. Ryan buzzes in first and becomes the head of household for Fast Forward. And basically my dreams are coming crashing down for what this season is gonna be. Aaron, what was your reaction when you found out Ryan is the head of household?
Honestly, my heart broke, not when Ryan was crowned HOH, but when Dustin messed up on the question, because like it literally set, like you said, it set the tone. Him not beating Brady caused Jacob to be against Jonathan right after the second round, which, by the way, kills me because it's like, since it's the past week, people aren't, but Brady picked Jacob first. So Jacob versus Jonathan. I mean, I guess since both are on the block, it's whatever. But no, he picked Jacob. So the whole future, what happened, is completely obvious. Ryan winning also should spark up when the person who wins this competition always is supposed to be the one that you're supposed to keep your eye on, because that means that people aren't targeting that person, at least as
exactly.
People. But I don't think that that's really coming across to anybody in that sense. He did gain a little bit of enemies, but not because he was the last one not chosen.
Exactly.
It's pretty frustrating that people aren't observant that way.
Yeah. So Ryan is going into the nomination ceremony, and he does what's best for his game. He picks the two people that he doesn't have a group chat with, and he puts up Dustin and Jonathan. We go into the veto player picks. I forget who played. Oh, it was Chris, Michael Brady, and Shelby. They were the three people that got chosen along with the HOH nominees. It was our first word competition. It was very fun to watch, and Shelby basically slayed. She was leaps and bounds above everybody else. I just want to say that Dustin used the word scrambler. That wasn't reliable.
Yeah,
there was
watching those words.
It was so bad. That's why it's taking me so long to grade, because I was like, is it word in any dictionary? But anyways, Shelby wins the head of household competition, and for the second week in a row, has to seal one of her allies' fate. It's a tough decision to be in. She saved Jacob's Heine last week, and now she's getting messages from Brady that if the veto is used, Jacob is going on the block. Jermaine, if you are Shelby at this point, would you not use the veto to save your closest ally, Jacob, or would you save?
I think he's just asking you, would you have done what Shelby did? Would you have saved Dustin knowing Jacob, your other closest ally, would go up? Or would you have kept the nominations the same, knowing Dustin was probably going home?
Hopes.
Okay, so I'm gonna go off with what Katie asked, because you guys, anyways, um, well, the thing is that Shelby did not believe that Jacob was going to get nominated. She she was like, this doesn't make sense. Like, why would Jacob be the renom if I use veto? Like, this doesn't make sense. Like, I have an alliance with me, Jacob, and she said to Ryan, like, we have an alliance group. Like, why would you want to renom Jacob? It was so apparent that Ryan was lying to her when he's like, well, everybody keeps saying that, he's like, everybody, the house keeps saying that they want Jacob up as the renom. And then she's got Brady over who's saying, like, dude, he's gonna use it, but she didn't want to believe it. So she shouldn't have used it. I'm gonna say she shouldn't have used it because I feel like Jacob is someone that is more useful to her. He is someone that is always going to be a bigger target than her if he stayed in the game. But her own, but just her and the situation. I think the stress of the situation and her trying to rationalize everything and having like such a short amount of time, like she didn't really think through the fact that like this is like going to fuck Jacob over. And no, it was not a good decision to use the veto and save Dustin at all, in my opinion. But she was not, I don't think, thinking like clearly, because she was so hung up on like Jacob wouldn't be a renom. That doesn't make sense when like the warning signs are going off like around her between Ryan and Brady. So yeah, it was like not the best move for her.
Aaron, I think you wanted to mention something too. Did you want to mention something?
Yeah. So I love Shelby. I really do. She is by far my favorite house guest this season, and probably will be my favorite house guest until she either wins or gets evicted. But out of everything that she's done this season, this is the worst thing that she's done. It is the most wrong thing that she could possibly do. If you have a final two with somebody, you need to keep them. Do everything you can to keep them. If you're really true to that, the moment that she gets any type of hint that Jacob's going on the block, that veto should not be used. And I feel like the I feel like he basically told her that going on the block. So I don't know why she would still decide to use the veto, even though she knew her final two would be on the block.
So I have a little bit of information as far as to fill in the gaps. Basically, Shelby and Jacob, they're well aware that Jacob is probably going to be the renom. Jacob gives permission to Shelby to use the veto. He said, I want you to use the veto on Dustin. Dustin has been nothing but loyal to us. Like, use the veto on Dustin. We need to do this for him. And if Jacob needs to go, he's fine going. This is kind of like the martyr of Jacob to kind of take the hit for his group. Katie, what did you think about Jacob fully giving Shelby permission to use the veto and then Shelby actually listening and using the veto on Dustin?
Honestly, I feel like this could potentially be a game-tanking moment. Like, I love Dustin. I wanted him to play this game so badly. Jacob is more likely to get Shelby to the end than Dustin ever is. Like, Jacob has just watching him study for this competition today, just watching his enthusiasm, his strategy, his thinking. He's calm, cool, and collected. Yes, sometimes he gets a little, like we saw him and Shelby get a little anxious, but he's the one that calmed her down. He was rude to her a little bit, which I'm not for, but he still calmed her down, whereas Dustin does the opposite. He amps her up. Dustin is paranoid. Dustin is intense. Dustin is a crier. Dustin is all these things that Shelby already is. She needed that sort of opposite of her in terms of who she is as a person, as well as someone who is a real demon in comps. And I think Jacob has a lot more opportunity to win comps down the road than Dustin was. So yeah, Dustin wants to be this martyr character and say, don't do it. But for Shelby's game, I think she should have said, no, I want to stay with you. And it's really hard for me because I love Dustin so much, but like Jacob, I am also like, Jacob, call me, like, hello, like, I love him too. He's so fun and awesome. So I'm just, I think she should have kept Jacob, regardless of him being like, do it, do it, do it. It's fine. Like, it just made sense for her game in the future as well. It's like, she's like, they're so close, but I'm happy Dustin stayed. Don't get me wrong. Dustin, I love you. You know that, but I'm
Awesome. So I hope the internet's good. Shelby goes to the veto ceremony. She uses the veto on Dustin. Ryan puts up Jacob. And there's kind of just this silence. And then Dustin and Shelby leave the call immediately. Shelby says that's fucked up before she leaves too. And then
calls him a slime ball too.
But I do want to mention, Shelby, that Michael Brady immediately told Jonathan that he has his vote. So basically a dead man walking. The votes are there. Ryan wasn't going to do it unless the votes were there. He made sure he got confirmation from everybody. And Aaron, tell me a little bit about, in the sense that he just took it. And he actually took it with a lot of grace. And he just got dressed up for the eviction ceremony with such a good attitude. Wasn't sure what type of reaction we were going to get from him, but he just took it like a champ. What was your response to that?
Should have said he's a good player. I can't do anything but give him props for it, because I know if it were me, I'd be probably going off on Ryan, like whether I was going or not, because I'm on jury, so I can say what I want to say, like, hope you can make the final two so I don't vote for you in the end. Like something mean and snarky, but he was calm, cool, and collected. And I mean, I guess there's two different types of people. There's the Joe way and there's the Jacob way. You can either take it or you can leave it. So it was really a good guy.
Right. That's actually what I wanted to say, because for me, it was just so beautiful to see the complete difference between the way Joe left and the way that Jacob left. The way Joe left being so intense, scrambling for votes, willing to do any shoving anybody under the bus, and it not working out and he getting sent home. Whereas Jacob, I literally felt like there's an oncoming car. He held his alliance back and said, I'll take this one. He literally took a bullet. And for me, I thought that was just very sweet. And all-star worthy. So it's like, Jacob, you gave me chills throughout the entire week, the entire season. Thank you so much for playing. And I think it was truly classy of you to not screw over your allies. You did the exact opposite of what Joe did. He threw people under the bus. You took the hit. And I thought that was really nice to see. Jermaine, Katie, I see you reacting too. Do you want to say anything?
I just love Jacob so much.
Yeah, he's a heart taker. All right, so so Jacob's gone, and that's a huge hit. That's a huge loss for this season. It's down to 8 people. It really does feel like this game is winding down. But with Jacob gone, I am scared for 3 people. I'm scared for Michael Brady, I'm scared for Chris, and I'm scared for Shelby. I think that the chances of any of them making it to the end is very slim. They had somebody that was adamantly willing, out of their way, to get rid of pawns. And now you're letting them into the final 8 situation where you're so close to the end that you're not going to take a big player like any one of those 3. So, Jermaine, do you think that this was necessarily the best move for Chris and Michael Brady? Because there was potential for them two to send home Jonathan as opposed to Jacob.
I just think that it is funny because this is something, ironically, that Joe has warned them about, as far as pawns skirting to the end. This is why he was very, this is why he claimed to be very adamant on wanting people out like Pam and Mandy. it's hard to say like long term what those floaters are going to do. I think the problem for okay, so let me just say I don't necessarily think that it's so much of a bad thing for Michael Brady. I do think that it's more of a bad thing though for Chris and Shelby. The reason why I don't think it's such a bad thing for Michael Brady is because Brady has proven that he can literally be in like multiple people's ears at the same time while they're comparing notes, and he still goes unnoticed. How the fuck he went unnoticed like during this fast forward, and nobody has said like he was in Ryan's ear, he was in Shelby's ear. I'm surprised nobody has really like picked up on it. I guess that's part of the viewer part. I feel like he will be fine. I think he's proven, especially with this fast forward, that he can think quick on his feet. He can cause confusion. As for Chris, and he thinks it's good for him at the time, but I think looking back later, that offer that Jacob made to him to get the floaters out, I think he'll look back at it later and realize that was actually like a very beneficial move for his game. As for Shelby, I feel like Shelby is also kind of like a sitting duck at this point. So I think it was good for Brady to have these people go forward in a sense, but for Shelby and Chris, like, I don't know. I think it's really cut them off like at the knees, and it's going to be very hard for them to make it to the end.
Awesome. And Katie, I want you to talk about Michael Brady, so please do.
Okay. I have a serious issue with Michael Brady right now. So Brady is not a new player, and he's been playing these orgs for a while, and people know he's insane. In fact, he has 2 names because he's so insane. He is purposely causing confusion. He's purposely starting fights. He's purposely doing all this crazy shit and thinking nobody will realize it's him. Very, very quickly, someone is going to realize that it's him doing this. Like, how Shelby hasn't fucking caught on. Like, I know that we all think that Shelby and Michael Brady are a real thing, and they probably really are, but the fact that he's still fucking lying to her is crazy. Like, he swore to her that he had no say in the Jacob vote. He fought for Jacob to stay in, he said. He fought for it. He didn't want it. He argued with people about it. Fucking false. We know Michael Brady was the one who was like, oh yeah, let's backdoor Jacob. I'm in, Ryan. Let's go. Ha ha ha. Like, come on. Like, closest ally, that's who we think he's gonna be really close with. Like, this guy is fucking crazy, and I love him to death so much, but somebody's gonna be like, oh wait a second, someone's causing weird shit and like throwing hanky votes and like lying to people all the time. I wonder who that could be. How they don't know it's you already, Brady, blows my fucking mind. And so like Shelby exposes the Care Bears alliance to Brady, and Brady's like, whatever, I don't care. Fuck you. You know you care. Like, don't play it off on Shelby like you don't care. Act upset so that she knows you're with her. Like, that's the smart move. And this alliance, he then goes and immediately exposes to Amanda and says, hey, did you hear that Ryan was in this other alliance? I don't care though, just so you know. Stop playing it cool. Start playing it smart. Like, it's ridiculous. I'm just, ugh.
So
That's
fun. Thank you for talking about Michael Brady. But yeah, that's kind of it. So now when we're going into the upcoming week, let's see who our ideal HOH winners are. Personally, I would love to see a Jonathan HOH. I feel like he has the most reason to go after Ryan. I want Jonathan to be HOH. Jermaine, Katie, who do you hope to be in power? Jermaine first, then Katie.
I also think that while Jonathan will be a really good HOH, I actually would like to see Dustin win as HOH. I think it would be a good, kind of defining the odds moment. you know, I want to say that the reason why last time I was so rough on Dustin was because I want better for him. I want him to take control of his game. And him winning HOH would be the perfect opportunity for him to kind of see where he stands more so in the house, or to get more of a relationship with some of the people in the house. Mandy didn't even respond to his message the other night. Like, she still, like, to this day has not responded to him. And I want him, first of all, he'll go after some, you know, some of the floaters. And I want to see what he does with an HOH. I want to see if he uses it to further, to really further himself in this game, because that's why I was so frustrated with him last time. And that's like, I want more for him. I want him to do well, and I want him to take this game, to take control of his game. So I want him to win an HOH, and I want him to start making some moves and really like trying to get something going for him to help build his resume.
Awesome. Katie?
So I was actually talking to Jermaine about this earlier. This particular week for us, or for me at least, really mirrors when I played BB Basic and I was the Shelby and I had my Patrick / Jacob and my Jermaine / Dustin, and I had to lose one in the fast forward week. And it was really, really tough for me. So I really sympathized with Shelby, but then the next week I got revenge, and I 100% want to see that from Shelby. I want her to win that HOH, and I want her to go ham on these people, because that's what I did, and it was so satisfying, and I need that for her. I need that for her this week. A, to even out the sides a little bit. B, to take out one of those fucking floaters who needs to go because they're doing absolutely nothing. And C, because I love Shelby so much. Aaron, how about you?
Ooh. Can I like say something real quick about yours? Is that while I would love Dustin and Shelby to win, I think the deal with Chris is off. I think Chris would be completely in danger, and I think it kind of warrants it. But Aaron, who are you hoping to win HOH?
Well, everybody took all of my people. Because I want him to do something. I want Jonathan because I think it would just be a really good surprise for the other side who thinks that he's still against the Care Bears. But I also want Shelby because I want her to put Ryan up and give it like in his face, like, oh, you want to get rid of Jacob last week? How about you go this week? And then you can go sit with him and you can go talk about all you got to talk about and say last week. But if I had to pick a different person than everybody else, it would actually be Chris, just because I'm 100% sure that Chris would actually still nominate a Dustin or a Shelby. I think he might do John and then Andrew. I don't know. But I'm not 100% convinced that after Shelby and Dustin.
Yeah. So many weeks have been gone by. A lot of big players have been taken out. 2 huge players have left this game. They were the twist after all. And now it's time for people to play. So, all right. Thank you so much for being here, production. And 4 and 5 is broken down. Stay basic.